Circuit Zandvoort is the scene of Week 8 of the Pro Mazda Championship. Last week, we saw Martin Arnoldus win at Mosport in a fantastic battle that ended on the final turn. Some track info for you. 2.653 miles is how this circuit looks. We're going to be going with a chicane on one of the long stretches. We'll go around that when we do join a car on qualifying. 23 degrees Celsius, 73 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun is out. 38 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Fahrenheit on the track. It's partly cloudy and 20 kilometers per hour. Now 19, it likes to switch on me. 13 miles per hour. And of course, we're in the Zandvoort, the home of the 2020 Dutch Grand Prix, if we ever do get to it. I'm Dylan Coyle, joined alongside Arjuna Kankipati. I got that right?
You did, Dylan, and we are here. It should be a good race. Like you said, Martin Arnoldus, he took the win last time out at a very fun race over Angus Waddle, and he takes the lead of the championship away from Jerome Haag. And now Jerome's not actually racing here today, so this should be an interesting one to see if Martin can build a little bit of a buffer.
Yeah, Haag struggled last week at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and Arnoldus, the one who we always talk about, the perennial second place guy, he likes to call himself that. Well, look at that. I don't see two written across the championship standings. He is in first heading into the week, 30 points ahead of Haag, so I'm not sure, Arjuna, but could it end up being a battle between Haag and Arnoldus?
Well, those are the two drivers that are definitely running away out front right now. Harley Lewis in third. He's a little bit further back, but it's going to come down to the wire, I think. These standings, obviously, as of this week, so through, I think, 7 of the 12 rounds, and that does include 2 of their drop weeks. So it will be interesting to see. I think we might have an exciting race at the finale at Road Atlanta.
Yes, it will be an exciting finale at Road Atlanta. I think that throughout the next few weeks, we're not going to see any, I would say, changes in terms of the gap. I think it's going to remain close throughout the entirety of it, as qualifying has 2 minutes left. Next week, we'll throw a definite curveball, I think, to everybody. We're going 90 laps at Richmond, so the only oval of the championship here. And as we see, in Medema, that is a beautiful looking livery right there. I'm always intrigued by what everyone does bring to the track right now. Waddle is showing up in first with a 133.3 on the charts, and right behind Waddle is Arnoldus, just 5/10, almost 6/10 behind. And we have Lewis go to P2, and Waddle does seem to be the class of the field with just around 1:30 remaining in the qualifying session, Arjuna.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about it, but we're running a slightly alternate layout here, as we see Ann Medema slowing a little bit on their lap. But this layout has a chicane on the exit of Hugenholz, I'm going to try and say it. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly, but it does mean that the draft effect of these cars not as strong, and maybe Angus Waddle, we saw him have to almost swap every single lap with Martin Arnoldus last time around. Maybe he's going to be able to build a little bit more of a gap as a result of that chicane, as we see Ann Medema running a little bit wide coming out of Tarzan Corner.
Yeah, I think that this race is going to be one where cars will be able to break away a little bit more than we saw last week. However, and you'll see on the track map right coming up here, there is that chicane. You have to move to the right and then get back onto the main circuit. I think that is going to confuse a few drivers, even though they've been practicing and racing all week. It's kind of an odd position to have the chicane. Obviously, the draft is not going to have as big of an effect on this already tight circuit, but it is going to be a confusing point, I think, for some drivers, as we see Medema is going to get out of the car with 10 seconds left. Not sure if anyone is still on the track. We'll be able to get to you the starting grid in just a few seconds, but it does look like Angus Waddle is going to get pole position here. And we see the checkered flag go out. Looking forward to seeing what this grid will look like. The pace car, as you see, pops into screen right on pit lane, and we do hear that music. That means it's starting grid time. Angus Waddle gets the pole, and starting alongside him is David Jarvis. Harley Lewis, Martin, and Oldest round out the second row of the grid.
Yeah, then moving on back, Scott McIntyre, he's up into 5th place this time around, and he's got his teammate next to him. That's Fabio Berchhold. Then you've got Andrea Cini and Alessandro Maresta further back.
After the Italian, we do go into P9, Matthew Vicenti, and then alongside him is Steven Roskin, excuse me. Oldest Patelklis is starting P11, and Amadima starting P12.
Then you got Gabriel Perez. He's up in 13th. Then Ollie Peacock lining up next to him. Then Jean-Michael Nognon and Pascal Flito. They're the next row further back.
Interesting spot for Ollie Peacock. Peacock took part in the 24 Hours of Nordschleife last weekend and was part of the top split that we did have on the iRacing Esports Network, brought to you by RaceSpot. So it was fun to see his name pop up there. Obviously, he's starting in the back here. The run down to Tarzan is going to be a lot of fun. Now, if anyone is wondering why we are talking about a character from an animated Disney movie and a bunch of other tales, Tarzan is the name of the first turn, the 180-degree right-hander. There's a lot of 180-degree corners on this circuit, but we're getting ready to start here at Circuit Zandvoort. It's going to be a great run. You hear the cars about to get going here. Cannot wait for this one. Green is up, and we're underway here at Circuit Zandvoort. Waddle immediately pulls off to the right to block off Jarvis, but Harley Lewis has a run coming down into Tarzan on the outside. Lewis is going to try and make it work, and he goes clear for the moment, and he's in the P2 past Jarvis. Great start right there. Continuing to go through these curvy S's into another 180-degree turn, and then a long straight before the chicane. Things are calm. Arnoldus is in P4, but Scott McIntyre has a way to go to catch up to Arnoldus. The top four have broken away. Through the chicane, no problem for the first four drivers. Waddle is getting away though, but we do have some trouble down in the chicane. Some drivers did find themselves turned around, and it looks like Medina is one of those with some trouble. Just getting out of the chicane now, as we see some of the other drivers. I believe that is Matthew Vicenti, who had some trouble getting there. Nonetheless, some 2x2 action going throughout the pack, and it's going to end up being, as we see the replay, not good for some of the drivers there, Vicenti, but at the front, going through Hans Ernst, we have some calmness. The top four, again, breaking away. And as we do move on to Kumno, named after a tire manufacturer, into the last turn, the Ari Lewandijk curve, we end lap one. Angus Waddle is going to be in the lead. Kind of a calm one, Arjuna.
Well, calm up front, but for Matthew Vicenti, I think he actually got hit from behind. I think that was either Uldis Patelklis or Gabriel Perez. I hope they forgive me for not being able to identify which one of them it was, but Matthew Vicenti, very much an innocent bystander, under braking there, going into the chicane. But right now, we do see the pace Angus Waddle is showing. He's got a little bit of a gap, but you can see that draft every time they come onto one of these little straights. He just gets that gap cut away just a little bit, and he's not able to really eke out the gap that I think his pace really warrants yet.
If there is anybody who is happy about that chicane being there, it's definitely Waddle. It's going to break up the draft, and Harley Lewis is the man behind him. And Lewis was the P3 driver perennially back there at Mosport. Arnoldus is P4. David Jarvis started on the first row alongside Waddle, but was overtaken by Lewis on the outside of Tarzan in lap one. This is an 18-lap race, no pit stops, and it's in pretty good conditions. This track should have some high grip for all the drivers here going into Hans Ernst again, and it's been pretty clean. Lewis, that first turn move was pretty daring, but he pulled it off.
It was, and now we go a little further back. Ollie Peacock putting the pressure on Alessandro Maresta. I think Alessandro just got past him, but right now that top four starting to build up a little bit of a gap between each other. A little further back, though, you have these little battle packs. You can see just a little bit out of shot, though. Those leaders a little bit more single file, but here we're going to go. Too wide into Tarzan corner, and I've noticed that the outside line is strong here, so I'm expecting Ollie Peacock, even though he's going to have some competition, he is able to hold the position around the outside as they now head down towards into turn 2. Ollie Peacock still leading this little battle pack now, but you are seeing little trends here. There's gaps forming between different cars in terms of relative pace, so the draft not as strong as it has been previously, but still for some of these cars they are showing that you are able to make passes happen. It's what usually known as a very tough place to pass.
Yes, it is a tough place to pass. It's been questioned by a lot of Formula One spectators that the large Formula One vehicles that we currently have here, are they going to even be able to pass? But the Pro Mazda cars are smaller in size, so there are a lot more passing opportunities. It's just, can he get to the back of a car in front? As we see Angus Waddle, a very sizable lead, almost a second on Harley Lewis coming out of the area Lewandike curve, the final one, which is now banked in real life. Just as of a few months ago, they got that finish. You see all the cars diving to the right. It's almost, it reminds me of what cars do at the Indianapolis 500, which will be coming up with iRacing in just a few weeks. You see all the Indy cars diving to the left to try and break the draft on the long straights there. Well, it makes sense. Pro Mazda was on the Indy road to Indy ladder, so it makes sense right there.
Yeah, and the month of May going to be a very exciting one over here on RaceSpotTV. We've got a little bit of an ad clip to show for you later on in our coverage. But right now we ride on board with David Jarvis. He rides in third. And I think Angus Waddle, you talk about him coming to that inside on that start-finish straight. I think for him, he's very happy about the fact that we have this alternate configuration here. As we see David Jarvis going a little bit wide. He's able to save it, though.
Jarvis goes wide. It allows Arnoldas to take over. However, I think it only ended up in losing one spot. So really good job by Jarvis to save it. That is not a spot you want to get offline. You see on the replay, did a great job of realizing he was going off track, kind of pushed the brakes a bit to not have all the steam going into the grass or sand area, as we are on the Dutch beach side here. It's not often we have some races that are held on the beach, maybe going back 60, 70 years ago, but not nowadays. This is a paved circuit, and we're about to go on to lap 4, and these cars are very much spaced out at front of the pack. Looking throughout the rest of it, we do have some battles going on for P8. Alessandro Maresta closes the door on Roskin, but Roskin does lock up the brakes here, and now they're going to go side by side into turn 2.
And Gabriel Perez right on the rear bumper here, waiting to pounce. I was watching some of the races earlier this week, and Stefan Rosligan, he's been a very aggressive driver. He's been one of those drivers who's fighting against that cliche that you can't pass here. But you can see that outside line of Tarzan corner through turn 1. It's very strong here for some reason. Today, Dylan, I was watching some of the previous races, in previous seasons where they didn't run the chicane, and I noticed that that inside lane through turn 1 much more strong. So for drivers this time coming back to a track that's very popular on this calendar, they're having to find alternate lines to try and challenge the other drivers.
Yeah, alternate lines. I almost feel like the outside at Tarzan corner is better because you do have a lot more of a run going down into the twisty, turny turns 2 and 3. It's almost better to have some more speed coming off that corner instead of just taking the short way around as we go into the final turns of Sector 3 of this fifth lap, or the fourth lap for these guys. Fifth lap for Angus Waddle. We see Perez here. He's one of the guys as he gets a little bit offline into the sand, but keeps it on the track he's one of the guys that is fighting for the championship. As a matter of fact, he was fourth coming into the week, just 17 points behind Harley Lewis for P3. And obviously, Haag and Arnoldus are far away from them, but it is a good battle to get onto. There's still a lot of time left in the season, so getting yourself some good points is always good. As we see a car go off and almost cuts off Perez, that was Roskin, and that is not good for him, as they will come to the chicane with a lot of speed. And we'll see the replay here. Roskin goes with a little bit too much speed into turns 3 and 4, another 180 degree. And you see that? It looks like Maresta has some rear wing damage right behind Roskin.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for Stefan Roskin, he had the outside line through Tarzan corner, but what happened was he just carried too much momentum down into that second corner, ran onto the grass, unfortunately was able to get it stopped in time, but Alessandro Maresta, he checked up, and the car behind, I think that was Gabriel Perez, he did not check up. So Gabriel Perez, he's come down onto pit lane for a brand new front wing, and for Alessandro Maresta, he's now got some rear wing damage to contend with. But what we do have out front, though, Angus Waddle, he's run away. There's a 3-second gap here to Harley Lewis, and we've got a 3-way fight for second here.
Great speed fight by Jarvis and Arnoldus, and trying to get by Lewis is going to be hard, though, if you're not side by side going into Tarzan. But again, Jarvis has some great speed, holds the line pretty tightly, and another 180-degree curve. This is turn 4 now, or turn 3, that is. You see the onboard shot with Jarvis. The amount of draft before the chicane, it's not as much as some of the trailing drivers would want it to be, but Angus Waddle, who qualified 3/10 up, as Jarvis gets a little loose, recovers pretty well. Waddle is just running away here, 3 seconds ahead of Lewis in P2, and he also had a 3/10 advantage over Jarvis, who qualified second. Jarvis has fallen back by 2 places, while Arnoldus and Lewis have both gained 1. Waddle is staying front at first. Scott McIntyre, we see the he's just staying put. We see the biggest movers of the race. Ollie Peacock, he's doing a great job, man. He's going into 7th, up 7 places from his 14th place starting position. Another few guys. A lot of them are doing better than their starting position, which is fun to see for some of the top 10 in the grid right here, Arjuna.
Yeah, there's been some good fighting and mostly clean. We've had a few incidents, but for the most part, you know, for such a tight and confined track, I'm surprised that we didn't get more incidents going down into the chicane on turn 1. So for a lot of these drivers, they had the intelligence and the awareness to be smart, but out front, Martin Alnordas, he challenges Harley Lewis around the outside, but Harley Lewis, he slammed the door. He tried to almost cut off that nose of Martin Alnordas, and he holds on to second place here. There are a few battle packs that have been forming here. We've got this battle for second, third, and fourth. And then further back, Scott McIntyre, he's got Ollie Peacock, Fabio Berthold, Andrea Cini all on his bumpers. So we've got some groups here, Dylan.
Yeah, we have some fun groups forming right here. Obviously, the one to look out for most is the battle for P2, going back to P4. Jarvis almost got back on the bumper of Arnoldus. Arnoldus was a little loose on the outside of Tarzan. Some great shots here, Arjuna. We're able to see how close each driver is. Jarvis is getting right on the rear bumper of Arnoldus, and you cannot even see Waddle in that shot. Waddle 4 seconds out in front. It's his race to lose here on the 8th lap of 18 total at Circuit Zandvoort.
Yeah, and he's just been absolutely dominating everyone here. Fastest lap of a 33.540. Harley Lewis has done a 33.6, but since that one good lap he's had, on the last lap, Angus Waddle, he cleared everybody in this pack here by a second. So he's really been just building up the lap. Now that he's broken the draft, he's really able to show. Qualified on pole by half a second. So that's a lot of pace there, and he's really putting that pace to work here and just showing us how strong he is.
not only that, but the pack of David Jarvis and Lewis and Arnoldus, they're 4 or 5 seconds ahead of Scott McIntyre. So there's definite skill gaps here, and I'm not so sure if you can put that up to the draft just not working, because there's not really that much of a draft that you can get to. These cars are very dependent on a draft, and without being able to just drive through the chicane area, it's kind of broken up. You can get a little bit of a run on the front stretch, but you're not really going to be able to pass on in Tarzan Corner unless you're on the side-by-side, as you see right here. Going into Masters, Jarvis wanted to dive down the inside of Arnoldus, but couldn't make it stick. I feel like these drivers are not going to take any chances until we're in the final 3 laps of the race, almost halfway through. Once Waddle crosses the line, he's about to go through Kumno Corner and Ari Lewandijk, so that'll be the halfway point for the race. But these P2 through 4 drivers, they cannot get separated from each other. Even when Lewis did go a half second in front of the rest of the crew, Arnoldus and Jarvis were able to fight back in a good run off of the Lewandijk curve for Arnoldus. He's going to go right behind Lewis in the draft. I don't know if he's going to be able to get side by side. He's going to make it so. Can he make it stick around the outside of Tarzan? He's not going to get the job done. Arnoldus leaves the door open for Jarvis on the inside. But again, going through these twisty corners, it's almost like a one-lane circuit, especially once you're past Tarzan. There's almost not a second lane you can go to. You'd have to be side by side on the inside of a car to actually make a move stick besides Tarzan corner. We see right on the rear left, Arnoldus had Jarvis to deal with. Jarvis has looked very testy. He wants to get some action. Scott McIntyre and Ollie Peacock are only separated by 0.3. Peacock, the biggest mover, and David Jarvis spins. Jarvis just in front of the pack. He spins and almost gets collected by 3 other cars. You see right there, Scott McIntyre had to take evasive action, and look who's the lucky one. It's Ollie Peacock, but David Jarvis, oh man, what an unfortunate event for him. You see, he tried to go down the inside of Arnoldus. It didn't stick. We were talking about getting testy Jarvis was and having to make a move stick on the inside, but he was only there at the rear right tire of Arnoldus. If we're putting fault there, I think we just have to say that's a racing incident, Arjuna.
I think it was a little bit of an aggressive pass attempted by David Jarvis. I did want to say he's been a little bit testy there behind Martin Arnoldus. They've made contact on more than one occasion. And so, unfortunately for David, he just tried to make a move that I think wasn't on. And I think he's going to have some damage to that left front of his. Now, we have to hope that Martin may have avoided the damage, and maybe we can see this battle with Harley Lewis maybe pick up a bit. I do think part of the reason that Martin was being cautious when he was trying to fight Harley is he was very cognizant of the fact that he had the David Jarvis right behind him, and he did not want to end up in a situation where he would lose an extra place. So let's see exactly what's going to happen here. David Jarvis, he is slipping through the field right now, so I am fairly confident that he has suffered damage from that incident.
Yeah, I do believe that Jarvis has suffered, and we see another guy go off. That's Jean-Michael Nguyen, and I believe that is a number 15 machine. And, or is it, or it's actually Harley Lewis. Lewis went off. Lewis seems to be out of the race. He turned right and then tried to overcorrect. He hit the wall on the left, and you want to talk about a battle, Arjuna, going to waste? Well, Arnoldus is clearly in P2. That's it for Lewis.
Yeah, that will be race over for him. He took just a little bit too much curb there as he came over through that right-hand kink, and he saw him get loose. He tried to correct it. He almost had it, I think, for a second, and then he saw a vicious snap to the other side of the track, and that's what put him into the wall. And unfortunately for Harley Lewis, he had qualified in third, moved his way up into second on turn 1, and that's going to be end of race for him.
Well, look who is at the final podium spot right now. It's Ollie Peacock. 11 spots gained from his 14th place grid position. Now he's in P3, and all of a sudden, the battle that was happening at mid-pack has become a battle for the podium. Scott McIntyre has over a second to contest between him and Peacock, but right behind McIntyre, he has a group of 2 more drivers. It's Fabio Berchtold and Andrea Chini. Both of them have gained a position, and so has Scott McIntyre. It's really been Ollie Peacock that has stormed his way through the field. What a race for him so far.
Absolutely not the best qualifying, and I wanted to say coming on the grid that Ollie Peacock in the race just before this one, he qualified on pole and he was leading for the majority of the race until a self-spin took him out of the contention for the race wins. So he qualified all the way back in 14th. He's up 11 places into 3rd, and I think he's got a pace advantage over the 2 TNT drivers behind him right now. And so I think Ollie Peacock, even though Scott McIntyre has the draft, I think Ollie Peacock will pull away from this battle pack of 3 that we're seeing on track right now.
And this is going to hurt both Lewis and Perez's place in the standings. They were in P3 and P4, and now Alessandro Maresta, who is currently in P9, has an opportunity to gain some points, but he's going to have to gain some positions first to gain some points, and with not that many laps left, it might be difficult. Just under 6 laps to go as Waddle into chicane, as we see this group of 3 drivers really starting to heat up. We're riding along board the last one in the pack, Andrea Chini, with that blue and checkered flag design on his helmet. They go through the chicane, which again, I feel like it's given some problems, and Chini goes off circuit. That's going to cost him some seconds going around another major curve of this circuit. There's so many to contend with here going around Masters now. And there's some solid separation, I think, forming now between Chini and Berchtold. Berchtold is still sticking right on the rear of McIntyre, and Andrea Chini will need to make some great maneuvers to get back into contention. I just don't see it happening here. The draft is strong at keeping you close, but if you are around a half second back or even a second, it's hard to get a draft going here when there's just not any long straightaways. He's going to have to depend on that front 2 of McIntyre and Berchtold to make a bit of a mistake, and it does look like Berchtold has made a mistake. Coming out of Lewandijk curve, Andrea Chini goes to the inside. Don't even need a draft there, but it is going to end up being a battle going into Tarzan. Chini is now in 5, but look at the outside. Berchtold tries to make it stick, can't make it work, and just slots himself behind the rear of Chini. Berchtold still looking, where can he make a move? That's not going to work, and it's clear Chini has now capitalized on the mistake by Fabio Berchtold.
Well, it all actually started with the mistake that Andrea Chini made going through the chicane last time around. That put him a little bit further back, and then we saw Fabio Berchtold making a small mistake of his own. That cost him a little bit of momentum coming down that main straight. And so Andrea Chini pouncing and moving his way up into 5th. I just wanted to point out, though, Angus Waddle, last time around, he's been putting in some good laps. The fastest lap so far at 33.349. That's 0.6 of a second faster than the fastest laps for everyone who's on track and circulating right now. But he's putting in times very similar to that. So the gap to Martin Alnurdas now 10 seconds. So Angus Waddle, he's managed to break that draft fairly easily, and he's just gone on and dominated this race to date.
Yeah, Waddle about to pass the start-finish line to begin his 4th to final lap, or would that be 3rd to final, because there are 4 laps to go? I'm not quite sure about the English language at this point. You see his best time is just 0.3 off of the lap he set last lap, and instead of the Waddle and Arnoldus battle, it's just the Waddle and Arnoldus show at this point, and I think Waddle definitely gets front billing there. Going throughout the rest of the field, you can't even see anybody else except for Waddle as he's going through the straight before the chicane. Ollie Peacock is in P3, has some great distance between him and McIntyre. Chini has gained a bit on Scott McIntyre. Fabio Berchtold is staying put in P6 right now. That's where he started the race. He can capitalize just the same as Andrea Chini. 6 seconds behind that pack is Stefan Roskin, and Jean-Michael Nguyen has another 3 seconds behind him. Ali Peacock, Scott McIntyre, 2.7 seconds separate them. There is a battle in the back, though, as Matthew Vicente and Alessandro Moresta are swapping positions. They're 0.2 of a second between each other. Pascal Filato and Ann Medina are within a second of each other. So closer action the farther back in the pack that you do go, as we see the Matthew Vicente and Alessandro Moresta battle. This is actually big for Alessandro Moresta if he can get into P8. That's another few points on the board for him in this battle to get a final top 3 position in the championship. It's not over, but it does look like Haag and Arnoldus are running away with it. Angus Waddle can start to make a bit of a dent, but he's not in the top 10 of the championship standings. So we've seen Waddle have some great success here at the last 2 weeks on Race Spot, but he hasn't been able to convert that into top points. 3 laps to go as Waddle just crosses the line. Well, just means 20 seconds ago.
Well, for Angus Waddle specifically, Dylan, maybe just a late entrant into this series, maybe not participating in too many of the previous races before we jumped onto the broadcast, but he showed good pace last time around. He had a good fight with Martin Alnordis, and this time, oh, there's a spin further back.
There is a spin, and it looks like Scott McIntyre has spun. Andrea Chini goes, thank you very much. No more battle there. Fabio Berchtold is the big winner there. He gains the spot that McIntyre lost. You see McIntyre touch the grass multiple times. Actually, it was the 3rd time that ended up hurting him, and thankfully for his Pro Mazda vehicle, he was able to correct it and keep it on track instead of continuing his momentum into the outside barrier. That could have ended his race, but instead he only lost the position. So not terrible, but it's going to take a lot for him to gain a position back, as he is now in P6, and lots of separation has formed throughout the entirety of the pack. Fabio Berchtold is around 2 seconds behind Scott McIntyre. Andrea Chini has around a 3 or 4 second advantage over the Fabio Berchtold driver. As you see, Chini and Berchtold 1.366 seconds at the stripe, using some of my seeing ability to say what the gap is. Not as exciting as the race that we did see at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park last week, Arjuna, but I'm definitely interested. It's going on at Richmond Raceway next week with that whole 90-lap oval run that we're going to see. I wonder who from the main pack we've been seeing here is going to be racing on the oval, and who's going to be showing up everybody else. Will it be a guy who is perhaps not the most talked about on these broadcasts? Will it be Angus Waddle and Arnoldus showing everybody who's boss again? Arnoldus was telling us that he was not very much looking forward to having to take on the 3/4 mile oval in Richmond, Virginia, but I know that this American right here is looking forward to it as we go on the final lap of the race. Angus Waddle, he's been the class of the today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angus Waddle, I mean, it's just been, we haven't had much to say about him at all. Like, he's just, from the start, he had a clean start, managed to break the draft within 2 or 3 laps, and from there, he's built a 13-second gap to Martin Alnordis. So we saw last time that those 2 drivers fought tooth and nail for the win. It came down to the last corner. Well, this time, it didn't really come back. It didn't matter much, but after about lap 2, I think we knew what the result was going to be here, Dylan.
Yeah, I think we knew what the result was going to be, maybe even at the end of qualifying when he was just 3/10, 4/10 up on the rest of the field. You equal that out to a whole race when you've got no traffic in front of you. You go around turn 1, there's not much you can do with a guy who doesn't have to worry about being a draft. Arnoldus has falling to Ollie Peacock just a bit by a 3-second deficit, but it's not going to end up really mattering unless Arnoldus makes a mistake here. But going through the final sector is Angus Waddle, and what a race he has had. What a performance by him as he goes around Kumno Corner, Ari Lewandijk curve. It's the final battle for him to go through. And on the front stretch, you can celebrate Waddle. He wins here at Zandvoort in the Pro Mazda Championship. What a race from him. What a result. Arnoldus is just coming onto the front straight. He's going to take home P2. Ali Peacock 2-3 seconds behind him. He's going to round out the podium. Andrea Cini looks like he's going to get P4 over Fabio Berchtold. Scott McIntyre, after a late spin, will hold on to take P6, with Roskin with P7. Jean-Michel Nguyen, a P8. Matthew Vincente had Maresta right behind him. Maresta lost some spots at the end. Vincente finishes 9th, Maresta 10th. Filato will finish 11th. Medema 12th. Patelklis will finish P13. Jarvis 14. Lewis and Perez, they are classified, but if you want to talk FIA regulations, not classified, as both 7 and 11 laps down in P15 and 16. I know we'll talk about the final order in just a few seconds. I did take us through it. Unfortunately, I do apologize for that, Arjuna. But that's the race. It wasn't thrilling, but maybe we got our hopes up a little too much after Canadian Tire Motorsports Park last week. You see the final results. Waddle again, 14-second advantage over Arnoldus, and Peacock made it semi-interesting at the end. A 2-second deficit between Ian and Arnoldus for the podium spots. Cheney and Berchtold separated within a half a second for 4th and 5th. McIntyre P6, Froskin 7. Jean-Michel Nguyen fought off Vincente and Maresta for 8th, and then Vincente 9th, Maresta P10.
Then the rest of your field, it's Pascal Filoto, driver from Canada. He was part of that battle pack, and then Ann Medema comes home in 12th. Then you have Ultis Pateklis and David Jarvis. David did manage to finish the race after his spin and coming down pit lane, I think. And then 2 drivers who may not have finished the race but still had a good fight, and this race not ideal for them in the championship, but Harley Lewis and Gabriel Perez, 8 and 12 laps down respectively.
I was really looking forward to Lewis and Perez battling with Arnoldus for P2, but obviously both of them had issues, and a bit of overdriving from their standpoint ended up being worse for them, and better, I guess you could say, for Martin Arnoldus. We will take a short break before we talk with some of the top finishers from Zandvoort. Don't go anywhere on RaceSpotTV.
coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson.
Unbelievable finish.
It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loba is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett Low. 4 wide at the stripe. For Audie's win here on this outside line. Neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
Angus Waddle, the #1 driver after today's race at Zandvoort, takes home the win a week after finishing second to Martin Arnoldis, and Martin finished second in today's race. It seems to be a bit of a back and forth battle between these two for who wants to be talked about the most on air, but with those two so far in front, it's not like we're able to talk about them much without just following along with their ride. But nonetheless, we do have Martin Arnoldis with us today to talk a little bit. And Martin, congratulations on P2. How do you feel about that race after it's over?
First of all, can you hear me?
Yes, we
All
can
right.
hear you this time.
First, I watched the videos of RaceSpot. It looked very awesome. That's what I would say. I want to thank you, the TNT Racing team. That's my own team. I want to thank you, Carbon team, with the 3 drivers at front. They were really quick, especially Angus, Harley, and David Jarvis. Were today, I think, better than me. Unfortunately, no much devotion team drivers, just I think one, Mathieu. So thank you, and thank you for everyone who shows up this race.
So you are going through the first half of the race in a constant battle for P2, and then your competitors fall off. What was the race about for you right after that?
I saw the Harley and Angus and David on the starting grid, 1, 2, 3 teammates. So Harley was in between, so maybe David wants to defend me, and Harley gets some backup, and Harley can follow Angus and get his draft, and then get faster than me, so I can't follow anymore. But on some lap, Harley made a sliding mistake, lost the draft of Angus. David, he made a mistake in chicane, and I passed David, I think, or David made also a mistake. I could pass and then fight for Harley. Then David started to push, and I think I'm lucky. We touched each other 2 times, and after that, he was gone. So I need to watch the replay, and Harley made the mistake. And it seems to be this season, other people make more mistakes than me. So it's good for me, but unfortunately for Harley, who was fighting too for podium in the championship, it's just a bad day.
Well, it's a good points hole for you. And just one more question looking towards next week. We talked about this after the broadcast 7 days ago, but it's Richmond. How are you going to prepare for that race?
I have no experience too much in oval, so I will join for fun. I don't get many points, I think, because a lot of people who has an oval license don't have many times a big I rating on the road courses. So I will just join for fun, and I think I will crash. That's what I think. I crashed almost all ovals, and I can't win. It's a different way of racing. It's different than road races, but I will show up anyway. Just one race.
Well, we do hope that you don't crash and you are talking to us after the race regardless. Congrats on the P2, Martin, and we're looking
Thank you.
forward to next week, of
All
course.
right. Thank you, guys.
All right, take care. Well, it was a fun race, said Angus Waddle, as he goes into P1 and stays there for the rest of it. Some battles that dissipated as the race went on. I think it'll be a bit different going to Richmond next week. And Arjuna, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to Carnage.
Carnage, I think, might be an apt word. I think Martin may have put it into words better than I can put it myself. I think for a lot of drivers, next week is going to be about the fun, the last oval race for this car before we get the new Pro 2000 and USF 2000s into the series. So it should be a good one. And then after that, it's a run of some of the most historic racetracks in the world. We go from the Nordschleife to Silverstone, and then I think it's Road Atlanta. And I'm missing one of the tracks, but I think it's going to be a really exciting way to finish the series, Dylan. We're going to have Richmond, which is going to produce some fun racing in these open wheel cars. And then we go on to a farewell tour on some of the most historic circuits that the iRacing has to offer.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun, I think, Arjuna. Going to all of those circuits and then from Richmond to, as I believe, the Nordschleife, that will be ridiculous. That race is going to be 7 laps around the green hell, and I cannot wait to see what every driver will deal with there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe not for corner names, though. I don't think so. But German might sound better if we just, try instead of Dutch. But nonetheless, thank you for joining us here on Race Spot. Another edition of Pro Mazda Racing here. Another fun outing for Martin Arnoldis and Angus Waddle. People behind it, I'm Dylan Coyle. Arjuna Kenkipati did commentary and camera work, and you got to give hats off to him. Arjuna, great job as always. Well, thank you for joining us here on Race Spot, and we will see you next week. Good night and good racing.